Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for February 7th through 13th. This week I read 3 books, I watched 6 shows, I watched 2 movies, and I listened to 2 books. First book I finished this week was Faith Taking Flight by Julie Murphy. This is a novel spin-off of the graphic novels about Faith, who is this awesome superhero who I absolutely adore. In this first book we get her origin story, we get to find out how she ends up with some powers, but she's also still in high school and hiding that from her best friends. She's also dealing with the fact that she doesn't really know if she likes girls or guys or both or everybody or just a few people, that type of thing. And she actually has a crush on a guy in her class and this girl that comes to town, and I really enjoyed that love triangle. Her friends and grandmother are also super supportive, and there are so many different little plot threads throughout this that I really enjoyed picking up, kind of figuring out what was going on with each different character. If you've never heard of this superhero before, Faith is fat, she's into journalism, she's nerdy as all hell, and those are the reasons why you should read this book. Next I read a digital arc of Pixels of You, which is a graphic novel. This arc wasn't finished, so I was mostly looking at the very rough sketches of what was going to be in the graphic novel, which probably diminished how much I enjoyed my experience with it. However, it is a very quick hate to friendship to possibly love comic book between these 2 photographers, one who is human and one who is an AI. I would be interested to skim back through this when the art is finished so I can make sure that I actually picked up everything that they were trying to put on the page. Next I read an arc of Act Your Age, Eve Brown. This is the 3rd in the Brown Sisters trilogy, and of course I really enjoyed it because I really enjoyed the first 2 as well. This one obviously centers Eve, the youngest Brown sister, and she is sat down by her parents one day and they tell her, you need to get a job, you need to stick with that job for a year, and you have to move out of our house within the next 3 months. And this kind of sets her off into a panic, so she gets in her car and just starts driving and then realizes she's hungry and sees this place that says amazing food on it. So she stops there, she gets out of the car and realizes that it says amazing food, but it's also a bed and breakfast, so they're probably not going to serve her. However, they are doing interviews for a chef. So she wanders in, never having gone to an actual interview in her life, having never made up a CV before, even though she's worked different jobs before and she's educated and she's gone to different schools for things. She hasn't really had a normal job before. This, of course, is when we meet her love interest, who owns this bed and breakfast, who puts his heart and soul into this bed and breakfast. And right off the bat, as we meet him, he is very grumpy because he's been doing these interviews for ages. He is very judgmental and very particular with people, but he's got his best friend there to help him out. I'll leave you off there because a lot of very fun things happen in this plot. A lot of things are realized by characters that are very impactful. I will also mention that this book includes autism representation, which I can't speak to, but I thought was done fairly well. Trigger warnings for talks of neglectful parents. What can I say? I love this series. I love seeing characters from the other books in this series just pop in here and there to talk to this character and cause problems at some point, and if you love the first 2, you're going to enjoy this one as well. On to the TV shows we watched. We watched the entire first season of Dark, which is a German time travel show. I don't speak German. Chad speaks some German, but I was really mean and made us turn on the English subtitles as well as the English dub, just because if the subtitles are on, I don't spend all my time looking at their lips flapping in English but not matching up with the German. And I'm coming to realize that it's way too distracting if I'm hearing it in one language and trying to read it in another, so we didn't watch it in German, we watched it all in English. Watching shows with me must be a trip because for the first 3 or 4 episodes I did a lot of yelling at the screen as to who is this character and how do they connect, because this is set in a small town and everybody is interrelated or dating each other or people are sleeping with each other's spouses or that type of thing, and you're just trying to be like, who is this? How do they connect? What is going on? And then of course there's a time travel element, which also made me go, I think that this character might also be this character. And then Chad also predicted, I think that that character is also going to be that character because they both wear raincoats, and I just had to scream because everybody wears raincoats because it rains all the time in this show. Of course he ended up being right, but still, why? If you like time travel sci-fi, I highly suggest giving this one a go. I believe it has 3 seasons. We just watched the entire first season, which was 10 episodes. I also watched this week's episode of RuPaul's Drag Race UK. This is the episode where they got to the end of their last challenge and then they were sat down and told, because of the state of what is happening in the world, we are having to shut down, and they thought they would have to shut down for a couple of weeks, like we all did last year. and then it says 7 months later. So the queens come back, there's some discussion of what they've been doing the last 7 months. A couple of them actually ended up moving in together. Somebody got some work done, and also did all the queens return? I won't spoil it for you, but I'm really hoping that one of the queens is able to do a future season because I was really rooting for her, and it's very unfortunate she's no longer on the show. I of course also watched this week's episode of RuPaul's Drag Race, and the most impactful part of this episode for me was Elliot with 2 T's talking about how he has had clinical depression diagnosed since he was 13, and opening up to another cast member about that, and that just made that cast member kind of do a 180 in how he treats him because his mother also has clinical depression. So it was nice to see people opening up to each other and getting to know a little bit more about each other. We also watched the 6th episode of WandaVision, which was definitely in the style of Malcolm in the Middle, and I really enjoyed that because I watched the crap out of that show. I was very sad we didn't get Vision just like very hairy in his underwear a la Bryan Cranston at one point, but it just would not have fit into the episode. It was also a Halloween special, which was interesting, and of course things to do with the plot of it and people understanding what's going on obviously progress, so I'm not gonna spoil it for you. This show is doing a lot of really cool things and I'm enjoying watching it week to week. We also finally finished the 3rd season of HarmonQuest, which makes me sad because the 4th season isn't out yet. I don't know when it's coming out. I'm pretty sure one is happening, but I don't know when we're going to get that. So if you haven't heard me talk about this before, it's a bunch of people sitting down and playing Pathfinder, which is like Dungeons and Dragons. It's a role-playing game, but it's the same game master and then 3 people and then also a guest person who is usually a celebrity. Sometimes I've heard of them, sometimes I haven't, and it's all improv basically. It's a lot of fun. Now I'm just gonna have to wait for the 4th season. While we were between activities, I also watched 3 more episodes of Crazy Delicious, which is a cooking show where contestants are given these tasks to do these outrageous cooking experiments, and it's just a lot of fun. It's really wholesome. I really like the host of the show. She's fantastic. Although there was one bit where she made a joke about her own weight, and then somebody else was like, "No, you're beautiful." And I'm like, no, it's not no, you're beautiful. It's just, you're beautiful. You're fat and you're beautiful. That's what it is, and that bothered me. Other than that, this show is wholesome and delightful, and it makes me want to go on a picnic, which would be difficult today because we are actually getting snow, which never happens here. So I'll try to insert a clip of that because it's beautiful outside my window right now. On to the movies we watched this week. The first one is called The Old Guard. This is something that is made by Netflix. We just tossed it on, and it's about these 4 characters who basically do military missions for pay, and you realize that they're actually immortal, which was a cool twist. However, they're not really immortal, they're just mostly immortal. Eventually their immortality kind of wears off, and then just one day their wounds don't heal anymore. Occasionally throughout history, another immortal will make themselves known, and then they have to kind of go to that person and kind of teach them what the situation is. And it was an interesting premise for an action movie, because I'm used to watching action movies and it seems like the people with plot armor just don't get hit by bullets or whatever, but now you have to play with the idea of they can get injured unless there's somebody who is no longer immortal, in which case that's a whole issue. It was fun. We also rewatched Scott Pilgrim vs. the World because there are so many people in that movie that I just didn't know who they were when I first watched the movie, and now you go back and you're like, Aubrey Plaza is here, and Brie Larson is here, and Chris Evans is here, and it's just so much fun. I also really liked realizing that Knives Chew is also on Glow, and I loved her on Glow, so that was fun. If you've never seen this before, this is a movie that is taken from 6 graphic novels and translated into film. A lot to do with the stylings of Edgar Wright, who produced as well as directed, and I really like him. I was also like, I'm gonna be mad if there's not a tooling up sequence in this movie, because he's also the director of the Cornetto trilogy, so Shaun of the Dead and those movies, and there's always a tooling up sequence, and there is, and he plays it in a little bit of a different way, which is adorable. There's also a thing that I've realized he also puts in his films all the time, which is the phone will ring and then somebody will thrust it into frame next to people and be like, it's for you. This happens in basically all his movies I've ever seen, which was just weird to pick up on. Anyway, this movie, if you've never heard about it, is about Scott Pilgrim, who wants to date this girl named Ramona, but he first has to defeat her 7 evil exes in a very video game stylized way, and It's a lot of fun. It has some problems, but it is a lot of fun. On to the books I listened to this week, the first one being Plain Bad Heroines. This one has a few different timelines. It starts with these two girls back in 1902 who are lovers, and they're in the forest, and they both get stung by these yellow jackets and die. This happens kind of in the forest offside of a boarding school, so we get to see the characters at the boarding school and how they go from there, and this kind of curse and tragedy surrounding that. And then it also takes place in present day where they're trying to make a movie about what happened at this boarding school in 1902. There were some interesting parallels through this. We kind of had a group of 3 from the beginning, and then a group of 3 right after that, and then a group of 3 in this modern day timeline, and of course yellow jackets were everywhere throughout this, which was interesting, but it also went in a fascinating direction when it came to talking about the film and how they were going to be making the film. So although I can't say that I really saw the major thread of why all of these things were happening from a curse standpoint, I can say that I enjoyed seeing these parallels and seeing how things were working out in the different time frames. This book is also sapphic as hell, so if you want to see women loving women in different time frames and spooky things happening, this is one to pick up. It is very, very long, but it's not so long when you listen to it on an audiobook at double speed. The other audiobook I listened to this week was The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I think that this isn't a first in a series, however the way it's listed on Goodreads there's no second book that I can see. There's also a 0.5 book, but if you read that, it's actually the short story that this novel ended up being based on, and it's basically the prologue to the story. So I don't know if we're getting more. I hope we're getting more. I assume we're getting more, but I don't know for sure. In this world, eventually cities wake up and there's a human embodiment of a city. And in this case, in New York, there is one who is the soul of New York, but then there's also these 5 other individuals that are the souls of the various boroughs of New York. And as they wake up, they come to realize that they all basically need to come together to fight off this evil. We don't really know what that evil is until you get further into the book, so I'm not going to spoil that for you. What I really enjoyed about this book is it didn't spend a lot of time with people not believing what is happening. You know that kind of call to arms with like chosen one tropes where somebody shows up and is like, you're the chosen one, and the person's like, no, it couldn't possibly be me. It doesn't waste a lot of your time doing that, which I really enjoyed. I also really enjoyed seeing these different characters and really getting to know who they were before they became this embodiment, and how becoming that embodiment changed them or didn't in different ways. There was also a variety of ethnicities and sexualities and these characters coming together. I love a good getting the band together type of narrative, and I thoroughly enjoyed this. I assumed I would because N.K. Jemisin is the queen, but it's nice to know that I did. Also, if you listen to it as the audiobook, there are occasionally some audio effects that are very intriguing and just kind of enhance the story. So if you're reading it on the page and somebody mentions that the quality of what somebody's saying starts to become distorted, that starts happening in the audiobook, which is really cool to listen to. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you're on your keyboard. Some people asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. It's not a subscription. You can just give me the price of a cup of coffee or whatever you would like to give me, but you definitely don't have to. The link for that is down below, as well as the link to my PayPal and my Amazon wishlist in case you would like to buy me a book. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!